Welcome back to another episode of Your Wichita Falls. And today I'm talking about whether or not it's a good time to buy, which, if you watch this channel at all, you know that I say that it's always a good time to buy. Yet there are some times that are better than others. So if you've been waiting to buy a home because you're hoping mortgage rates will drop another full percent, stay tuned because we're getting started right now. And I'm going to share with you some really important information. Welcome back. I'm Debbie Dobbins. I'm your host and your guide for Wichita Falls. And this video might save you a lot of money and a lot of frustration because if you've been hoping that rates will drop another full percent, I'm going to tell you why that's probably not the best strategy to wait any longer. So let's dive in. Here is the truth that most headlines aren't explaining very well. Rates are already coming down. Well, if you're paying any attention and you're sitting on the sidelines waiting to buy a house and you're waiting for the rates and you're watching it very closely, what is the Fed going to do? They've done a lot. Believe it or not, they have done a lot. And I know there's a lot of conversation about we need the rates even lower, and they probably will come down some more in the next year. And that being said, let's talk about what that really means. The rates have been coming down. And if they come down further, will that really impact you that much, especially if you're buying in Wichita Falls? Because we have lower prices here. So it really does change the dynamic. And over the past few weeks, mortgage rates have quietly crossed a very important milestone. For the first time in 3 years, rates dipped into the high 5% range and are now hovering in the low sixes. You can actually get a 15-year mortgage at 5.5%. That's such good news because at the end of the day, rates at 5% or thereabouts are good for the economy and they're good for home buyers. And according to these expert forecasts, this is likely where the rates are going to live pretty much for the rest of the year. Maybe a little bit lower. We're getting a new Fed chair. That matters to you more than what you realize because mortgage rates don't just affect your interest rate, they affect how competitive the market feels. So, what does that mean? It's how many buyers are active. And if you remember, not too long ago, we had what I call the unicorn years when the rates were flipping historically low. And here's the problem with that. When they were at that historically low price, everybody flooded the market. And we still have a problem right now. Here's the problem. We still have a shortage of inventory. I actually was talking to somebody yesterday. They were looking at a house and it's a really nice house. And I said, here's the difficulty is we have a shortage of inventory of good marketable properties. I'm in Wichita Falls. We have a bunch of houses on the market frankly, nobody really wants. So we are looking at a shortage of inventory of actual properties that people want. And when you're in a market like that, guess what that is? That is a seller's market. And if we go back into a seller's market, because those rates are so low that everybody's out there buying a house and now the sellers are willing to sell, it's a little bit of a convoluted process because we're going to get into those bidding wars again. And what does that do? Raises the price of the house. Just because interest rates are down a little bit now, which is more in line with where they should be, if they get terribly much lower, which I'm hoping that this new Fed chair won't get crazy. I mean, if we got to 4%, we should stay there because anything below that is going to make this market crazy again. And we're going to overheat and then we have potential for inflationary results. This all affects all of the interest rates is how the market feels, how buyers are active, and how much leverage you have as a buyer. So when rates were near 7%, well, closer to 8 last year, payments were higher, but the buyers felt squeezed. And so people hit the pause button. So there's been a lot of people sitting on the sidelines. Now, that pressure has been building and it's now beginning to ease. And the borrowing costs are at their lowest point in nearly 3 years from the interest rate perspective. That changes the math. And it's obviously a far cry from October 2023 when we reached 8%, which was nutty. But the real math that the buyers miss is these numbers, because this is where people get stuck. People get stuck on the idea of an interest rate, which drives me a little crazy sometimes because it it depends on how much your mortgage is. And if you're buying a $200,000 home, we'll just use that as an example, and you drop your interest rate 1 full percent, right? You go from 8 to 7. It roughly impacts your payment on the principal and interest $100 per month. Now, that's meaningful, I will tell you, but here's the part many buyers don't consider. If you wait for that additional rate drop and the market heats up again, you may end up paying $20,000 to $40,000 more for the same house because of this increased competition. So here's the real question. Would you rather save $100 a month right now or secure a lower purchase price now and refinance later if rates improve, and they need to improve at least 2% for you to get the benefit and repay all of the closing costs? Because refinancing is the flexibility that people forget about, or you can buy down the rate. One of the biggest myths that I hear is, I'll buy when the rates are perfect. Well, if that was the case, people wouldn't have been buying houses for all of these centuries. But the thing is here's the reality. You can change your interest rate later. You can't renegotiate the price of a house that you pay. It just doesn't happen. So buying now allows you to lock in today's home price. Avoid bidding wars as more buyers are re-entering. There's going to be a flood in there. They're all waiting on the sidelines, and the demand has been absolutely ready to burst. And then refinance later if the rates drop to that 2% more. Waiting removes that flexibility. So I want to share with you what the data is telling us about buyer demand, because that's how you see what's actually going on. According to the research from our beautiful people at the National Association of Realtors, which I am a member, when mortgage rates sit around 6% or below, which we're right at that sweet spot, 5.5 million more households can afford the median priced home. Okay, that says 5.5 million people are ready to go. About 550,000 of those buyers are expected to purchase within the next 12 to 18 months. And if you're starting to think about this, 12 to 18 months is going to go by really fast. That is this pent up demand waking up. So, historically, when buyers come back into the market, prices respond faster than rates. Gee, I just said that, but it's the NAR. Say it for me. So, this is your reality check. This doesn't mean every home works for every buyer. Well, duh. Mortgage rates don't exist in a vacuum. We've seen that over time. So your decision still depends on your local inventory, which I just shared about, home prices themselves, and also property taxes and insurance. These are some of the areas that people forget about, are the property taxes and the insurance. So I'll talk about that in another video because that's really key to buying in Wichita Falls particularly, or Texas in general. And then it also depends on your personal financial comfort. So what are you looking for? I know that people are paying rent, but sometimes over the past few years, we've seen the rents go exponentially higher, and it is still more affordable to own a home than to rent. And there are plenty of videos on this channel that I talk about that. I don't care what kind of economy you're in, it's always better to own than to rent. Why are you paying somebody else's mortgage? I never understood that. So, getting pre approved and running the real numbers matters more than waiting on the headlines. I'm going to say that again. Getting pre approved, run the real numbers so that you know exactly where you are and what potentially could happen if the rates were to drop another 1% or 2%. Trust me when I say that's not going to happen in the next year. So these mortgage rates dropping to a 3-year new low isn't just a news story. For so many of you buyers out there, it's the difference between sitting on the sidelines and actually getting the keys to your beautiful home. And if buying didn't work for you 6 months ago, it's absolutely worth rerunning the numbers now, but rerun them with the taxes and insurance of the property that you're looking at. So if you're thinking about relocating to Wichita Falls, or do you just want clarity on what's possible out there? Grab a copy of my free Wichita Falls relocation guide in the body of this video so you can actually see what it's like to live here. And if you want to talk through your specific situation, you can book a Zoom call with me. All the details are in the notes of this video, and there's no pressure, just clear information so you can make the right decision for you. So thanks again for watching another episode of Your Wichita Falls. And if you found this helpful, like subscribe, come on, and I'll see you in the next video.